Yeonmi Park came from an elite family before her world came crashing down.
My father, my heroes, got arrested for his illegal trading business. When I saw the president of South Korea hugging Kim Jong Un, I asked myself, would he do the same with Hitler? I escaped North Korea when I was 13 years old. Up until then, my life was a torture.
I'm on the outside, I'm looking in. I can see through you, see your true colors. Inside you're ugly like rain. I can see through you, see through the real you.
History and her backstory. So Yeonmi Park is a North Korean defector that now lives in the United States, but she was originally born in North Korea, aka the DPRK. She is a North Korean YouTuber and book author who preaches and takes part in anti-DPRK, anti-North Korea politics and propaganda by making anti-North Korea propaganda and pure lies in her YouTube videos that she makes and promotes on her YouTube channel. She promotes anti-Kim Jong Un videos and more, like basically everything that you can think of. Like she's like against like North Korea, anything pretty much. And she also does like anti-DPRK, anti-North Korea, conservative, pro-American, pro-America, doing speeches, across the world and talks, like TED Talks and stuff. Long story short, she's basically like those rich, conservative, white Cubans who live in the United States and Florida, whose families fled Cuba to live in America and complain about how Fidel Castro and communism took all their land and all their brown and black wage slaves on their plantations. She's just the anti-communism North Korean version of it.
We're celebrating the end of a man who separated so many families throughout the years, a man who killed many, who imprisoned many individuals just for thinking differently and not believing in his revolution, like my father, who was a political prisoner in Cuba for many years. I didn't get to live my early years, my childhood with my father because of Fidel Castro and his regime. Therefore, I am glad that he's gone. I'm just sorry that he's gone before he's able to see a free Cuba, because Cuba's going to be free. And I think that would have been the ultimate slap in the face for him to have been alive with a free Cuba.
Like, there's no difference between those rich white Cubans that are anti-communist and what she's doing. The only difference is that she's North Korean, not Cuban. So, first of all, Yeonmi Park is not a human rights activist. She's not a good person. If you're a human rights activist, you don't promote the imperialist United States of America and act like it's a great country. You don't support the U.S. military or the troops that fight wars based on lies. You don't call for regime change via coups or sanctions, both of them which kill innocent people.
Even in South Korea, the country that was rescued by America, 37,000 US soldiers died for the Korean War, defending the democracy. Of course, Jeff Bezos trillionaire, right? Like how many $6 trillion is worth? How many people are worth of my money? But why does it matter? Of course, I'm so much poorer than him. Does that mean that I am poor because the inequality exists? That doesn't mean there is a poverty. The free market does make people rich. Some people way more richer than others. But it lifts all of us together from the poverty. That is very clear. Without free market, guys, how do we end up with the internet and computer of all these innovations? It's not just possible. And it's a side effect, if you want to call that side effect, is an inequality. And that is not a bad thing at all. I think we need some kind of understanding here why people so much get upset about inequality. To me, I appreciate inequality. And this is why I think I am shocked by people who live in this country are so brainwashed to believe that any kind of inequality.
She's not a human rights activist. She kept claiming on the back of the book she's this human rights activist, and she, fights for human rights. But like, what's funny is she has, been quoted saying, what should we do to help North Korea? And one of her responses was to sanction the oil in North Korea and cut off the oil supply.
A change North Korea is cutting the oil.
So whatever happens, things cannot be worse than what it is now. Like, it's impossible. No way on earth things can get worse than what it is right now. China doesn't want North Korea to be falling into democracy like South Korea.
And, you're not a human rights activist if you call for sanctions or getting rid of the oil, because then you're putting a country into devastation, and hardships. If you're a human rights activist, you never advocate for misery, but she puts out lies and stuff about North Korea for capitalist pig media, U.S. imperialism, Western imperialism media. You don't promote wearing designer luxury brands that use sweatshop slave labor, all while claiming to be a human rights activist. You don't claim that systematic racism in the United States doesn't exist and call black people spoiled for fighting against systematic racism.
America is not the racist country. There's no systemic racism.
That black women feel less pain than white women is racist. Its origins are too. To this day, this narrative that black people, especially black women, feel less pain than white people still persists within the medical community.
And injustice. She got mad at Gwen Berry for protesting the racist song, The Star Spangled Banner, and the person who wrote that song was a slave owner and protected slavery and promoted it in the song.
So whatever happens, no way on earth things can get worse than what it is right now. China doesn't want North Korea to be falling into democracy like South Korea is.
Yes is your answer. This should be stopped by everyone as soon as possible.
We constantly talking about slavery happened hundreds of years ago.
She claimed that the United States is the most tolerant country in the world and went out of her way without facts to claim that America was the first country to abolish slavery without doing any actual research.
Korea still have slavery. China still has slavery. This country ended slavery before any other country.
She really said out loud that she doesn't care about human rights with what she said about black people when it comes to fighting against injustice and systematic racism.
But they have been saying they've been volunteering to, if there is allowed, they would love to go to Ukraine and fight for the people of freedom in Ukraine from Putin's tyranny. The reason why North Koreans are ready to shed their blood is that they now understand the worth of freedom. And they've been themselves become the refugees, right? I was a refugee, and now there are hundreds, thousands of refugees are fleeing from Ukraine and suffering because of this war that was completely unprovoked. So there's so much now willingness coming from North Korean defectors who wants to fight for freedom and defend other people's freedom. I think this is really time that we need to understand nothing else matters in life if we are not free. We cannot fight for climate change. We cannot fight for animals' rights. We cannot fight for LGBTQ rights. Anything that is social justice is that people are passionately discussing. Freedom is a basic condition to all of other things. So if we lose freedom, nothing matters really at that point. That is why we need to fight for each other. And I send all my prayers to Ukrainian people right now going through this unimaginable. And thank you guys for watching today's video. And I really hope that you learned something about the evilness. And also,
you don't support capitalism if you're a human rights activist. Capitalism is a very exploitative system that puts profits over lives every day, that of animals, that of the earth herself, and that of people. The system does. A human rights activist doesn't support big oil propaganda and books just because they give money. A human rights activist doesn't make up total and complete lies about their country and pure anti-communism propaganda and sell out her own country just because she wants to live a rich, bougie, aesthetic, luxury capitalism lifestyle in the United States.
We would like to ask to the US and its followers, isn't it already a crime itself to provide shelter to the criminals? Instead of bringing justice to such criminals as the family members of Park Yeonmi, the US and its followers are supporting them to use those criminals as servants in achieving their despicable aim of regime change in the DPRK. Isn't this clearly showing that you are the ringleader of crimes?
Africa, there are a lot of dictators. North Korea sent their workers, slave workers, to build statues for African dictators.
School, I didn't learn. I never even seen the map of the world, and I never even knew therefore there were like different races existed. We are not Asians. We are not like some East Asian. We are Kim Il-sung people. We are Kim Il-sung race. That's what they say. We are Kim Il-sung race. We are not Asians in North Korea. And the Kim Jong Un, the Kims, the dictators, on purpose not to feed us.
North Korea is not a country like America or China, able to producing things. They cannot really like even barely make a toothbrush with all their own things. The only thing that regime makes is nukes, drugs, and weapons, all of those things. They cannot even make a toy for the kids.
Like in North Korea, there's no movie, no songs, no books about love story. And the word love doesn't exist.
So, for instance, do you know that in North Korea we don't know what the words for love? There's no vocabulary for love. Because Kim Jong Un was so paranoid that if we love our partners or our parents or our children, we are not going to love him as much. So the only love that we are allowed to learn in North Korea is love for the dear leader.
Now you're going to start reading books. Now you're going to start thinking about the meaning of life. You're going to do art. You're going to do, you want to have your hobby. You want to think about more than surviving. So like if you keep feeding people, they are not going to be obeyed. You're not going to be able to control them. That is why the regime so cautious, calculating not to feed us. So all we can think is not about revolution, not about freedom, not about how people living. It's about surviving next meal. Can we like survive until like tomorrow? That's all we think as a people. I mean, there's like when you're born in North Korea, like life is a struggle. So you don't really expect life to be a happy thing or something to be nice. I think my dream as a child was eating a bucket of bread. So my dream was like having one bucket of bread, and that was an unimaginable thing to do in North Korea. We are so poor, we can never do that. So
this is the cover of a Yeonmi video. Sweetie Yeonmi, I believe this is some sort of porn site.
North Korea. Why don't you just immigrate to North Korea? Because in North Korea, I just wanted to read that book. Why this book, this ideology killed that many people? In this world, nothing has killed more than communism. Without capitalism, how any of this is possible? Capitalism is making it available for us to have all of this, have excessive food, have opportunity, have all the devices that we own today.
How appealing the idea is.
Got it.
And especially to young people who, a lot of people don't pay, when you're young, don't pay taxes, right? You don't work, you don't actually understand how the economy really works. And also, I think, because now life is so easy, right? Like when you're born, your mortality rate is so low, especially in the US. I think this generation expects life to be easy. That's what their expectation is. I grew up eating, grasshoppers. That was only my source of protein I could get. I was eating plants. I was literally finding everything I could to find food in nature. I didn't grow up with refrigerator. I didn't grow up washing machine. I went to river in the summer to take a bath in the river and wash my clothes there. And in the winter time, we don't take a bath. Maybe we take once before the New Year's. There is only one channel on TV, 24 hours, that is telling us how wonderful the socialist paradise is and how bad our American bastards enemies are. And You know, I remember when I came to America, going to Walmarts and going to see this like section of magazines, right? They have living like magazine, fashion magazine, cook magazine. I never seen any kind of magazine in North Korea.
I can see through you, see to the real you. I'm on the outside, I'm looking in. I can see through you, see your true colors. Inside you're ugly like rain. I can see through you, see to the real you.
These countries that have the best women's rights in the world. And today I'm going to talk about how that is not the case in North Korea. Rape is not even a crime. We don't even a lot of times know the word for rape.
There's no word for human rights or freedom, and there's no word for profit.
When I was born, I did not know the even word like dignity, right? I did not even know the word of human rights. It was so I have been constantly censoring my speech. I keep censored by like YouTube, but I'm still trying to have my channel there because New York Times, CNN, and BBC, everybody needs their money from China. Like it's the only really value that I got from all of this. Like because of I spoke out against the dictator, all my 3 generations of my family back in North Korea have been sent to prison camp or being executed.
I can see through you, see your true colors. Inside you're ugly like rain. I can see through you, see to the real you. Fake it if you feel like
So there's no word for friend, for instance. And history doesn't exist in North Korea.
So
Even know what internet is. And not to mention that they don't even have 24-hour selection. And sometimes you have to push the train.
You have to push the train.
Yeah, traveling in North Korea. But
Bruh.